Hi, it's Lee and welcome to the Tesla Economist. Yes, there's still a lot to go through for Investor Day, but we've just found out a lot more information about Tesla's new factory in Monterrey, Mexico, according to a recent Reuters article. The headline reads, "The factory is nearly double the size of the Texas plant," according to local officials. However, when you read into this deeper, it sounds like they're not talking about the actual factory, but the site. Apparently the site is 4,200 acres in size, compared to Texas at 2,500, which isn't even quite double anyway. It is, however, a very large site nonetheless. However, it does say that Tesla will spend initially $5 billion and hire 5,000 people. To give you some idea, the Giga Texas building alone cost $1.1 billion, and that was built in the US. One might assume that $1 billion might go further in Mexico than in Texas. However, the $5 billion would likely include plant equipment, whereas the $1.1 billion for Texas is just the building alone. But still, that does potentially mean that the building may very well be larger than Texas. I mean, on Investor Day, when Elon officially announced the location, we saw a CGI of what the building and location would look like, and it looks kind of big. It possibly looks almost like two Giga Texases side by side. It's definitely relatively wider, so it might very well be bigger than Texas. Although Mexico's government has said the plant will be the world's largest electric vehicle factory. The article goes on to say that there'll eventually be $10 billion poured into the project, and a number we've heard discussed before. So possibly this is what the building will look like when finished and all $10 billion are spent, or it might be for future expansion of more buildings. In the same image, there is some text that reads, "Manufacturing Next Gen Vehicle." So I'm going to assume that this will be a Gen 3 vehicle. It does say vehicle, not Gen 3 process, so I'm going to assume that this is for the new vehicle, of which we still don't know what. But we have likely narrowed it down to one of the two covered vehicles we saw at Investor Relation Day. One looked like a van of some description, and the other looked like the compact. We don't know if either of them or both of them are also robotaxis, but if I had to guess, I would have thought that it will be a compact Gen 3 Tesla to be built at this factory. The craziest thing about it though is that officials say they plan on breaking ground in just 3 months. And Tom Zhu is saying that he wants to build this factory even faster than Shanghai and aim for 9 months, implying the factory could be complete within a year. I know it sounds hard to believe, but even if it's operational anytime in 2024, that is still very impressive. We're told that it will have a capacity of 1 million vehicles a year. With the disappointing progress from 4680 cells and the new factory's ramp taking much longer than expected, it will be good to see some momentum again. In fact, I think that due to the fact that the 4680 cells are taking so long, there's a possibility this factory will not be using them. I think it possible they may end up using LFP cells, especially with Elon saying on Investor Day how nickel cell vehicles will only be used for long range. Well, we would expect a compact model to likely not be long range. We expect it's probably going to be low cost around $25,000 to $30,000, so you might not likely expect that much range for that price. However, if these vehicles are using a smaller battery like 45 kilowatt hours, then even with 1 million vehicles, you only need 45 gigawatt hours a year. And that would be once fully ramped. Obviously, it's going to take some time for Tesla to ramp to that many vehicles, so possibly they will use 4680s as they will offer structural packs. I'm not entirely sure, but if they are struggling with 4680 cells still, then perhaps this factory is a way to bypass that and take advantage of more LFP cells while we're waiting for Tesla to figure out everything else with 4680 cells. But like I'm saying, if they have a small battery, then 4680 cells may be able to ramp up in time too. Although it sounds like Gen 3 will be able to adopt any cell that's available, so they'll just take what they can get. Now, it would seem that the majority of investors actually think that this factory and vehicle will be mainly for Central and South American markets, presumably because it's a lower cost vehicle which may be more suited to that market, and perhaps Tesla are concerned about the cannibalization effect a compact model may have on the Model 3. Also, compacts are not as popular a vehicle in the US. However, South America doesn't have the charging infrastructure set up, so I'm not sure how popular it would be there, especially if this is going to be the biggest factory making the most number of vehicles. I think that with all the tax incentives and subsidies, it would make the most sense to sell these vehicles in North America. The factory is only 900 miles from the border. A few others think that it might be for China or Europe, but I would say it's far more likely Tesla build another factory for those markets for this vehicle, or else there was little point building it in Mexico. There was actually no advantage, as they wouldn't get any subsidies if they're importing LFP batteries from China. They'd have to pay shipping costs and import tariffs to get to those markets, which would likely negate the cost savings of lower cost labour from Mexico and just add to the hassle for logistics. If they're making $1 million a year and their cost is under $20,000 per unit and there's $7,500 tax credit, then if they sell them for $32,500 in the US, it costs $25,000 to the consumer, yet gives Tesla a gross profit of perhaps $15,000 per vehicle, including some optional extras some customers may order, or probably FSD on top of that, and that excludes any potential subsidies. One lucky retail investor who won the lottery to invest today got to talk to Tom Zhu, and apparently Tesla are also planning on building another gigafactory at the same time as this Mexican one, which, if true, is a really big deal. I would guess that perhaps either at Berlin or Shanghai sites and the Gen 3 platform, compact vehicle for those markets. Can you imagine if we have 2 new gigafactories, bigger than Texas, running and operational perhaps by around 2025 sometime? Perhaps each producing a collective of $30 billion a year in gross profit for the company. This will be a real turning point for the company, producing an affordable vehicle for the mass market. He also said that the Gen 3 model may be stainless steel, which is what I have suggested in the past. As Tom Zhu says, paint is expensive. I mean, stainless steel is expensive too, but I'm not sure by how much more compared to paint. The additional cost is mainly the nickel and the steel, which is about 8% of the alloy. Of course, having no paint shop saves a lot of time in production and floor space. In fact, with what we're hearing about how Gen 3 will be a smaller footprint in production by perhaps 40%, and no paint shop potentially, you have to wonder, why is Giga Mexico going to be the biggest factory yet? I mean, Giga Texas already has 2 factories in it, and they're not using Gen 3, and one of those factories is using a paint shop. And there is also a cell and battery factory in Texas too. Well, maybe, then it's highly possible that Tesla will be making both the compact model and the van from this factory. But even then, there would still be a lot of factory space. Maybe they'll be making robots too, but not sure the factory line for that would need to be as big as a vehicle line. So there's likely to be a big cell and battery factory on site as well. But whether it's 4680 cells or LFP is the question. And yes, I'm aware that 4680 is a form factor and LFP is a chemistry, but Elon has said they will not make LFP 4680 cells. This could be a massive energy production facility too, perhaps. Maybe solar, megapacks, Powerwalls, new products. This facility seems far too large to just produce one compact vehicle with an even more efficient footprint. It would be great to get more info as to what we'll see come out of this factory. Anyway, supposedly, we'll see the first Gen 3 vehicle rolling off the production lines in 18 to 24 months. So likely no major boost in sales for 2024, but hopefully some in 2025. It will of course be a new process and take time to refine, as we're seeing with Berlin and Texas too. Seeing growth in factories is very reassuring as to the future of this company. It's felt a little flat last year, not seeing the new factories ramp close to the levels we were told, and similar for the 4680s. Hopefully this year will be a different story, and we should even get to see some Cybertrucks come off the line too. Thanks for listening. Please hit the thumbs up and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon.